We have that today with the USA Patriot Act. And I can tell you that somebody who is in daily contact with law enforcement, both domestic, state, and federal, a trainer, I could tell you that law enforcement takes it very seriously, the USA Patriot Act, and does not try to use certain aspects of it if they feel it's going to harm people. You have to have faith in your society and faith in the courts that if we go down that slippery slope, there's enough to deal with it.
Mr. Horton, 4-minute rebuttal.
Well, we are agreed that the Patriot Act is evil. In America, there's a theory that our society is ruled by law rather than men. And the law in America, it's right there in plain English, ratified by the several states back in 1791, says that the executive cannot come in your house unless an independent judge has signed off on a warrant based on probable cause, supported by a sworn oath, an affidavit particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, period. It doesn't say we create a Congress one day that can one day, if they decide to, pass a law and repeal this Fourth Amendment. It doesn't say that. So if you really want your Patriot Act, if you're that frightened, I understand. Let's repeal the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States and make the exception for when we're scared of foreign terrorists. The other thing I'd like to say about the Patriot Act is that it's not just the Patriot Act, is it? We use the term Patriot Act now almost like Coke and Kleenex as generic terms for the rest of these laws. The Military Commissions Act, which says that any of you or anyone in your family can be turned over to the military and held indefinitely by the President of the United States. The Detainee Treatment Act, which says that it's perfectly okay to torture people as long as you're a CIA agent. The Real ID Act, our national ID card. The creation of America's first real national police force, the Department of Homeland Security Act. The recent amendments to the FISA bill, which give them even more leeway in violating the Constitution of the United States, and short-lived and yet extremely noteworthy and dangerous attempts to rewrite the Posse Comitatus statutes and the Insurrection Act, which was done in the John Warner Defense Appropriations Act of 2006. Of course, there's total information awareness, Talon, TIPS, George Bush's executive orders unending. And so the Patriot Act is only a part of the terrible assault on individual liberty of Americans in this country. And I'm sorry that I don't know their names for you, but I do know that people with wire transfer businesses that had nothing to do with any sort of international terrorism whatsoever, and also people that own gambling casinos in Las Vegas have been prosecuted under the Patriot Act. And I also know that the domestic prosecutions in this country, never mind the people who've been turned over to Guantanamo Bay, like or the care of the Navy, like Jose Padilla and Abu al-Mari, but we've seen the Virginia paintball terrorists who were told that they better either plead guilty or they'd be turned over to the Navy as enemy combatants. The same thing happened to the Lackawanna Six. In Detroit, the 5 guys who were prosecuted, the federal prosecutor actually ended up being prosecuted because not even Alberto Gonzalez could countenance such a bogus prosecution based on the testimony of one guy facing 75 years in prison. Lodi, California, Brandon Mayfield in Oregon, the Miami 7, the Fort Dix plot of the New Jersey pizza men, the plot to blow up the JFK airport, the plot to blow up the Holland tunnels. All of these are bogus cases. People who have no ties to Al-Qaeda whatsoever, people who, what most of them have in common is they've made friends with someone that they didn't realize was an FBI informant, attempting to trick them into saying something stupid into an open microphone. So really, who was the last actual terrorist prosecuted in this country? It was Moussaoui, the guy who, if they'd only done their job under the law as it existed in 2001, they probably could have stopped the attack. And by the way, when Joe Biden first proposed the Patriot Act back in 1996, it was the Republicans who opposed it, singing songs of the Bill of Rights, all the while, and opposing the Know Your Customer regulations and all the other vast expansions of power that are included in the Patriot Act, which, by the way, was passed before anyone had even a chance to read it. Thank you.
Dr. Kushner, 2 minutes.
All the cases that were named have nothing to do with the USA Patriot Act. The USA Patriot Act is an act specifically allowing intelligence agencies certain methods of data collection and certain methods of wiretapping. The discussion of all these cases, which some of them went bad, had failed in the prosecution of them. That's a different debate. If we want to debate just the Patriot Act itself, again, you have to get down to the fact, do we need roving wiretaps? Do we need the ability to go inside and confiscate someone's computer without telling them that we took that information because we're hot on the trail of something to happen? That's what the Patriot Act has given us. Sure, the Republicans, this has something to do with it. Sure, the Republicans were against it because the Republican Party and the Conservative Party believe in the Bill of Rights, believe in the Constitution, and whereas we were a country at sleep when that was suggested, this type of an act. After 9/11, we woke up and understood that we needed a Patriot Act because our law enforcement agencies, in particular the Federal Bureau of Investigation's hands were tied. I told you of the Levy amendments. We had openly had tens of thousands of case files on people who we thought were problematic here in the United States in the mid-'70s. When the Levy amendments came in, the case file numbers went down to only 600. It put an inability for law enforcement and particularly intelligence gathering agencies to be able to get information. And that's what the Patriot Act is about. So again, it's about gathering information, roving wiretaps. It's about confiscating material that you might have in your possession. It's not about military trials. It's not about Guantanamo. It's not about torture. It's not about any of those other things.
Mr. Horton, with the presidential election shortly upon us, does America face a greater threat from international terrorism if Barack Obama or John McCain is elected, or is this not a factor?
I think that we're just about as doomed either way. Both candidates at least pretend to accept the premise that the terrorists who are determined to attack America do so because we are free and because we are good and because apparently we haven't invaded and regime changed their countries yet. And as long as they accept that that is the source of our problem, they both obviously also seem to accept that the solution is exactly more of the same. And of course, that's just not true. When one talks about backing the enemy of my enemies, I can feel a story coming on. Why did we back Osama bin Laden and the Mujahideen in Bosnia in the 1990s? Well, he was the enemy of our enemy. Why did we back them in the 1980s? He was the enemy of our enemy. Well, what angered them so much that they wanted to knock our towers down? According to Michael Scheuer, the former chief of the CIA's bin Laden unit, it was because our troops were based in Saudi Arabia beginning in 1990. And why were they in Saudi Arabia? Well, we had to check the power of Saddam Hussein and keep him from rolling in and taking over the Saudi oil fields. Well, how did this guy Saddam Hussein get so big for his britches? Well, we had supported him when he used poison gas in the Anfal campaign in the 1980s and in his war against the Iranians. And we had to back Saddam Hussein against the Iranians, you see, because some Islamic radicals that we had initially hired in 1953 to help us overthrow the Prime Minister Mossadegh and install the Shah Reza Pahlavi himself was overthrown by those very same Islamic radicals, Ayatollah Khomeini and his followers in 1979. So we absolutely had to back Saddam Hussein in order to contain the Islamic Revolution, you see. And of course, we had to install our dictator in Iran back in '53 because, well, the Soviets and the British had invaded Iran after World War II and we inherited it from them. And so therefore it was ours, and we've been trying to steal it back ever since 1979. This is what intervention brings you. The next crisis, the next excuse for the next intervention. Have we solved anybody's problems in the Middle East? Of course not.
Four minutes, Dr. Kushner.
Again, maybe it's just me, but when a question is asked, I like to address the question. And I believe if you could repeat, if I'm repeating the question again, it was, is there a difference between Barack Obama? Would you just repeat the question for me?
With the presidential election shortly upon us, does America face a greater threat from international terrorism if Barack Obama or John McCain is elected, or is this not an issue?
It's an issue, and thank you for repeating it, because that's what was asked, that's what was not answered. Let me answer it to you point blankly.